This week's Everyday Inclusion and Belonging, where we talk about literally everything under the sun as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Happy New Year. Can't believe it's 2023. I am Mo Berkner-Boyd. I'm the founder of the Moxie Exchange and the Everyday Inclusion app. I'm a white woman. I've got mid-length. I actually just got a cut. Reddish hair, kind of curly, kind of straight, kind of a hot mess today, actually. I'm wearing red frames, an orange sweater. Behind me is my bookcase with a bunch of books and some of my favorite tchotchkes. I am super, super excited to be joined by Netta Jenkins. So Netta, you and I connected a couple of years ago. Love seeing all the work that you're doing. I know that we're going to talk about your book that's coming out that you can pre-order, The Inclusive Organization. I know that you've got a live that you're doing that's a book club that you've started. And so I just really appreciate how much you give back to this community and how much you are really about kind of rising tide lifts all boats and learning together, which is why I'm so excited for this conversation. So I'm not going to do you justice with my introduction. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell everybody what you're up to, and then let's dig in and talk about this meaty work of DEI.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm going to follow your lead here. I have red lipstick on, and I don't go anywhere without my Ruby Woo red MAC lipstick. My hair, it was a hot mess, but now it's looking a little put together.
Good.
I have a green jacket, and I'm in my office. But a little bit about me. So I have been working in the DEI industry because I truly believe it's been an industry and it's now evolved into a bigger industry for over 15 years. And I've been doing this work and I absolutely am very passionate about these efforts. My background is in communications and behavioral psychology. So I oftentimes within the DEI work that I do, I like to add that human-centered element because I really understand how our brain works and human behavior specifically. I have over 250,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so what I often try to do, and not even try, I do almost every day, really trying to educate those that are following me, because the bigger piece here is I want for folks to then empower and share that information with someone else and drive that action. So often I'm providing actionable steps that folks can take. Clearly, I like student loans because I'm now a doctoral student. I didn't take out any loan this time, but it might as well be, right? I'm looking at my bank account and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? But that's a little bit about me. I'm so excited to be here with you, and I love the work that you do. I'm a huge, huge supporter of it, and excited.
So let's first talk about the book.
Okay.
So what had you write the book? And y'all, if you haven't pre-ordered, get your pre-order. But what, like, right? It takes something to write a book, right?
Yeah.
And to me, it was a little bit like another child, right? So you don't undertake writing a book lightly.
No, you really don't, unless you're really passionate about creating a shift or a change, right? And that was really, I'm always trying to find different ways, whether it's through a technology platform or through literature or posts that I'm posting every single day. I'm trying to be as accessible as possible to, all folks. But I think what really propelled me to write the book is I've read so many DEI-based books, and they've always came from a very theoretical, research-based, background. I'm like, all right, I like that author, but that book is boring, right? I know that already. And then I started to say to myself, but there are so many people out there that are so eager and hungry to implement these efforts and actually see results and change and understand how to measure it. And they quite don't know. So a lot of the books that I was reading they were very finger pointing, and it didn't allow people to walk away with something, which is what I love about your show here, right? Because folks get to walk away with something. And so that's what really propelled me to start the book.
Yeah, I think, we are kindred spirits and organizations in this like action based, like enough talk already.
Let's
What
do
can
it.
I, what can I actually do? And people are really hungry for what they can actually do.
Yeah.
So you and I, gosh, we could have gone a million ways with this conversation as we talked about before we turned on the cameras. Um, let's talk about from the moment somebody hits an organization, right? And what their journey is and how we even bring them on in a way and give them the tools and resources to be inclusive ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes what I tend to see is organizations and well-meaning, right, want for all of their employees to be a part of DEI efforts and understand it, but then they start to get so frustrated with, well, why isn't everyone doing this?
Yeah.
Why is it just the HR department or the DEI department leading these efforts? And the reason why is because DEI is missing from the onboarding stage. So once someone joins the organization, they should be receiving all of the information as it pertains to the various programs, to various events, to the strategy, to who are the leaders that are invested in this work that they can reach out to and speak to. And I'm not just saying the employee resource group leaders, like who are the executive senior leaders that are actually invested in that work. And I've seen great impact when organizations start there, because now that employee that's coming in knows, whoa, well, I knew in the interview that this was serious, but good golly, right? This is really serious here. And I understand the steps that I need to take. So that's one phase of it. The next phase in the onboarding stage, and I think within
Can
the
I have you pause just for a second? Because I want to make sure that people are really anchoring with that. So you really need whoever that might be, somebody, maybe you have your L&D department that does your new employee onboarding, or maybe you've got HR business partner, but those folks play a really critical role. What's that agenda, right? What resources are they pointing people towards? So you really need to be partnered up and make sure that it is quite literally a part of the system and process of onboarding. And I think that can be like, you can say that, Netta, but if people aren't like pausing for a moment and saying, what internal resources
yeah.
do, because those folks need to even understand
Mhm.
all the resources, all the tools, who the senior leaders are. So I think it's, we've got some organizations that a part of their welcome package, they're including the code for downloading everyday inclusion, right? So it's like, what are those things? What are those things? And who are those people, particularly who's leading that new employee orientation? Because that person or people are really setting the tone.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to identify who's leading those efforts, right? Identify that so that it's a seamless process. And also understanding, like you said, you want for that, and that individual should know who are those key players, those executives, the senior leaders that are invested in the work, which departments are working on this. How do they then evaluate DEI? How do they then tie it in? What's the accountability measure, right? So there's a lot of different facets of that.
That's right. That's operationalizing
All
this.
operational, absolutely. It has to flow throughout the organization in order for it to be most impactful and effective. The
Okay, so
next,
now step two.
yeah, the next phase, I'm like off on my phases today. The step two would definitely be making sure that there is education, at least one piece of education that is embedded in the onboarding stage. And the one that I like to introduce folks to is either DEI introduction. So really breaking down, what does DEI mean within the workplace? What does inclusion mean within the workplace? What does equity mean in the workplace, right? The example that I would provide is, let's take equity for an example. If you're thinking about equity, if there is a broken process, let's say within the engineering department, what does that then do, Mo?
You fix the broken process.
You fix it, but how does it then negatively impact others?
if it's in engineering, it flows through everything, right? Product, customer
Right.
experience,
That's
right?
it. That's it. It's touching so many other departments cross-functionally, but the people are most impacted. Now, what happens, let's say if someone's a caregiver, there's a broken process, but their manager is saying, but we needed this yesterday. That person doesn't then have the flexibility to then say, oh, can I go pick up my child? But everyone's working over the hours. Now you feel bad. Now you're feeling burnt out, right? So there's this whole chain reaction. So when I talk about equity within the workplace, I always tell folks, look at DEI and think about DEI as a lens. Apply it to your work as a lens. It's not additional work, but when we apply it as a lens, and if I'm using equity as an example, and you start to see, well, there's broken processes. So how can I even think about increasing representation? Because that's going to be a larger impact to marginalized groups. We know what the research tells us, right? Or just to other people in general, right? So, it's very critical to have that education. So it's either the introduction to DEI, and that's something that I do for various organizations, introducing that. And the next one could be understanding and mitigating microaggressions.
I'm
So
gonna, I can have you pause at phase 2 again.
Sure, no, do it, please.
Because the things that Netta just shared in terms of what some of that base education is, those of us that do the work, we have unconscious competence. And so it's really clear to us what diversity is, what inclusion is, what equity is. But setting those, right, those base, what are we actually talking about when we're talking about these terms? And what does that look like in practice? So core, Netta, to, right, like we tend to think about where an organization is on their journey. So there might be an organization like Xerox, right? Like they've been doing it forever.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mean that individuals within that organization are in that same level of maturity. And
Right.
so really thinking about the individual maturity and starting with those fundamentals, I think is key. And I love that you called that out, because sometimes people are like, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to talk about anti-racism work. If somebody's doesn't even understand the fundamentals, asking them to understand anti-racism work, that's way beyond what they're actually going to be able to take action on.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I tell people it's like baking a cake. If you have no clue how to start, it may not turn out as good, right? So you have to follow the instructions and take it one step at a time. And just kind of going back to what I was saying before, I want to make sure that people understand what diversity in the workplace means, what equity within the workplace means, and what inclusion in the workplace means. So diversity in the workplace is the equal representation of different identities and experiences on teams that offer psychological safety, advancement, and successful solutions. So oftentimes when we hear the term diversity, it's very generalized. It's not applied to the workplace, right? It's like, oh, it's everyone, all background, all races, identities, whatever. But there's never the end result of, but is this actually offering psychological safety for folks? Are folks advancing? Are there actually successful solutions coming out of it? I covered equity a bit, but then when we think about inclusion in the workplace, it's the ability to share wisdom and power through privilege for the success of all. Yeah. Right? So being able to then identify, okay, what power and privilege, and we all do, what power and privilege do I hold that I can then share with someone else that will allow them to succeed and propel within their career?
Love it. Yeah, we talk about spend your privilege, right? It's not going away. So spend it, right? Use it, right? Again, everybody's winning when everybody is succeeding. Okay, so phase 3.
Man, you got me. Now I'm stuck. I'm like, what is the phase 3? I think phase 3, now that you have the the information for folks and they're aware. You have the education. Phase 3 would really be then tying it back together and checking in on that individual, understanding and making sure that they have almost like an advisory hub of people that can support them through the process. That way, when you're having other, educational events, maybe let's say on a quarterly basis, and you're giving some time between quarters for folks to process, now you could provide them with, I don't want to call it homework, but allow them to process it with maybe an application session, that allows all of them to kind of think through, hey, here's the material that we learned, here's how I'm actively applying it.
Mhm.
So that full 360 check-in is so important to see, okay, well, where is this employee at? And I think then that employee will say, wow, this is still serious.
Right? They didn't just go away. They didn't just bring it up in
It
our.
didn't just go, yeah, it's not that's where we get the word performative. It's not just performative. This actually matters. Now, the gotcha is organizations have to then put a budget to DEI in order for this to happen, right? Because it can't just be one person doing all of that work. One of the things that I say in my book is you wouldn't, if there was an available CFO position within an organization, would a leader then say, or the hiring manager, hey, anyone that's interested in finance, come on board, but we only need one, just one person that's in, that.
Are you passionate about finance?
Exactly. He's passionate about learning how to make sure that the organization is sustainable. Great.
Is your family, do you come from a family of people in finance?
Exactly. It doesn't happen, right? We would all be like, it's so foreign that we would be looking at each other like, what is going on?
Exactly.
So it's the same type of behavior that we should have. And I know as human beings, and studying for such a long time, to shift our behaviors is a very challenging thing for us, but we have to in order to begin to shift the systemic dynamics that exist.
So there's so many things here, so many things, Netta. I knew. What's interesting I want to go back to the checking in, right? And quarterly and having those, like, how are things being applied? I'm curious, one of the things that we talk about is in that, if you think about one of the loneliest and most vulnerable times for an employee, it's those first few months. They're trying to figure everything out. Think about like, for anybody that changed schools when they were, when you're the new kid. And so that new kid feeling never goes away. So that first day and those first couple of months, one of the things that we suggest from an inclusion standpoint, right, for inclusive onboarding is really have somebody that is their how things are done around here person, right? The person that is checking in on them consistently, right? They're the person that those first couple of days, it's like, well, here's how we do things. Here's where things are found. Here's how, right? So it's like they're their navigator through the organization. And I love this idea then of having the quarterly check-in, right? And how are they doing, where it could be that person, but then it sounds like you're suggesting also opening that up to a larger community and for some community conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And for organizations not to be afraid to utilize their ERG groups. Those leaders want to make sure that folks are onboarded and they want to know that folks are invested in this work as well. That only empowers and ignites them. So definitely utilizing ERGs, I think, is really important in this process.
Well, and I think that goes back to expertise. And ERG leaders play such a core role. Pay them.
Should I throw my little lip gloss up in the air or the Red MAC lipstick? Which one?
Right?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Pay them, and they should be in your succession planning. You should be looking at them at high potential. You should be investing in them. The bottom line results that they are helping you get as an organization by making sure that everybody feels a place and a sense of belonging is core to the success of your business. So all those things, pay them, put them in the succession plan, be investing in their education, their development. They are absolutely key to your DEI efforts and to your
Yeah.
organizational success.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I also say is like, make sure that senior leaders are sponsors of each of the groups, and they don't have to identify with the groups. And when you have an executive or a senior leader a part of that, they can take the time to get to know each of the core leaders that are moving the group along. They can also then sponsor and put in a good word to the, to their managers. That helps them to propel in their, from a performance perspective. I've even watched folks within ERGs land other opportunities because executives advocated for them. And let's say there was a riff or a layoff that was happening, and they said, hey, well, this person did this. This person managed really, really well. We're going to be losing this person. How can we put this person in place?
And,
Right.
and doing that, right, with those executive sponsors, you're getting proximity, right?
Absolutely.
You're getting, and that proximity leads to that sponsorship, right, which leads to the advocacy. So those really making sure highly engaged in those executive sponsors to those groups is critical. And I love there's just so much good that can
Mm-hmm.
come for everybody from these really well-run, well-sponsored issues. Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of the things I always say to organizations, when DEI is done well within an organization, goes back to what you were saying, everyone is going to feel the positive effects of that, right? Because if that's going well, then financially, there's going to be a level of impact that will then increase everyone to, potentially get bonuses and extra pay. So there's that financial impact, of course. And I don't like to lean on that too much, because I'm like, this work needs to be done anyway. You have people, and especially as we start to explore mental health, mental health has been such a critical component for many years, but we're seeing it even deeply highlighted in DEI even more, because people are feeling such deep feeling of burnout.
Absolutely.
Due to the recession, after COVID, and all of these like various societal events that have been taking course. So it's all really important for us to really focus on the mental health component too within DEI.
Yeah, I think it's this work is extraordinarily important, rewarding, draining, right? Like it's all the things.
All of it, yeah.
And so I think that is, if you're somebody that's doing the work, particularly those of you that have been put in, maybe you were put in an organization to check a box, right? Because there was a whole lot of that happened in late 2020, early 2021. Make sure this is a really giving community. And if you don't have kind of mentors within, right, not in your organization, but other people doing DEI work, I reach out, because there are always willing people. And I would say, I so appreciate you bringing up mental health, because this work is not for the faint of heart, right? Whether it is, the ongoing kind of gaslighting that happens around the work. So I think I again, thank you for bringing that up, Netta, because we can't move the dial in organizations if we're burnt out.
Oh, absolutely. I think there was a huge, for a long time, there was this taboo topic, right? Everyone was kind of nervous to talk about, that's not me. I don't have a mental health issue.
Fine.
And now there's many people that are like, no. I need to take care of my mental health. And I think mental health, it's very interesting, because I think for a very long time it was glamorized, right? Oh, mental health. If you're not feeling well, just go and take that bubble bath with the flowers and the roses and all that stuff. And then you're like, you get out of the bathtub and like, I still feel crappy. What happened?
Right. That didn't work.
It didn't work. It didn't work.
Maybe I need some tea.
Exactly. Exactly. And what I had learned, and I was researching this, and I came across an article, it talked about, some people, for their own mental health, they need to disconnect and they want to be alone. But for the majority of us, it's actually connecting with people that we care about. It's
Yeah.
that reconnection of saying, you know what, I'm gonna let my hair down. I'm going to go out and have a good time. Many of us have not been able to release that. We've been held in our homes, right? Those of us that are privileged to even have homes, but it's so incredibly important.
So I can't wait till your book is on the bookshelf back there. I have pre-ordered my copy. Do you have where do you prefer? So I know, like, for example, I always, if I can, I have people order books from Urban Reads bookstore out of Baltimore. She is a Black woman-owned business that supports incarcerated authors and sends copies to those that are incarcerated. I don't know that we can get your book through Urban Reads, but do you have some places that you prefer people pre-order?
Yeah, I love Urban Reads. I'm trying to get my book in there. However, I'm working with a publishing company, so they kind of get to dictate
Yep.
where the
Yep.
book goes, right? That game. But Amazon, you can definitely get the book on Amazon. And I ask people, once you get it and you start reading, please leave a review, you know, your honest review. That will help me and help the work that I do as well and help others. And then you can also get it on Barnes and Nobles too. I'll be, you know, at many conferences, and I'll be putting out kind of all the tour dates for folks to join. I want to meet as many folks as possible in person. When I was locked in COVID, I'm like, I want to meet
Absolutely.
people, right? So really excited for that. And yeah.
Awesome. Cannot wait. And in the meantime, y'all, she's got the book club that is happening here. So get yourself signed up for that book club. Netta, I always end this with, leave me with one last truth bomb.
Ooh. Truth bomb. Well, you know, the truth is, and I talked a little bit about mental health a bit. I was in my car the other day and I had this moment where I just had to break down. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have so much on my plate. And I shared in the beginning, I'm a doctoral student right now, but I did not realize that it would be a walk in the park. I was like on my MBA, it was pretty easy. You know, undergrad, I graduated in 3 years instead of 4. Doctoral, I could take like 5 classes. I dropped 1 and I feel so relieved. So that's my truth bomb. My truth bomb was I had to say to myself, hey, Netta, you have to identify when it's too much. It's okay to release and cry as well, because you're letting something go and it may not be in according to the years that you wanted to graduate. And I'm really just trying to apply that to my life overall with 2 young kids.
Yeah. I love that permission, right? Permission to say no, permission to say, I can't do this right
It's
now.
hard. It's really hard to do.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, Netta. Thank you for being such an inclusion champion and really making a difference in the world. Y'all go get that book, get out there, do the next right thing, and we will see you next week on Everyday Inclusion and Belonging.
Awesome.
Bye.